Good afternoon, parents. It's Friday afternoon in my principal's pitch, and a bit of a different one again. I'm dressed as a beekeeper. May is our mental health month. You've probably seen some information coming out from the school. And we have a wellbeing team, one in primary and secondary, that have been working hard on various initiatives for the month. We're really grateful for their hard work, as well as Masiwick, our head of counselling services, and her team to support all this. Well, I am officially the beekeeper. I'm wearing my beekeeper hat, glasses, and you can see the frame around about the importance of well-being and being kind. We have emphasized this month. It follows on quite nicely from our CIS accreditation process, where well-being was the focus. And in the primary assembly this week, I was introduced as the school's beekeeper. And it was my role as principal, as the main beekeeper, to look after the well-being of our school and our school community. So that is my job. Some lovely words were spoken, and really appreciate kind of the analogy as well as the work that's gone on. I'm going to put down my frame and take off my beekeeper's hat and continue with this principal's pitch and move on to another aspect that I'm very grateful for, and that was the involvement in the Convex end-to-end, middle to end, Warwick to end last weekend. It was a great Warwick showing. There was walking as well as many along the way. Really appreciate your support of our efforts to kind of get our school community out and walking and supporting this great event. We've got the Relay for Life starting tonight. We're supporting our student council and our Year 12 student leaders in particular, and Year 12 students involved in that. So I'll probably see you down there. I've got the 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. stint tomorrow morning, looking after our students there, supervising them. And following the busy weekend, last weekend on Sunday, I attended the Outstanding Teen Awards at the Ruth Seaton Janes Auditorium. We had a number of our Year 13s who were nominated. Very proud of them for their nominations in a variety of different categories. And we enjoyed 5 of our students that got the actual awards, the winners for those different sections. And you'll see them listed in my principal's pitch, the written part below this link. In particular, I'm just going to highlight Tessie Naylor, who was the outstanding overall teen in Bermuda. She got that award. Very proud of her, very proud of the other recipients of awards, as well as all the nominations. Right, so as a follow-on from last week, where Mr. Thorpe spoke a little bit about his future and some thoughts on Warwick Academy, we're going to do something a little bit different today, in that I'm going to throw a word at Mark, and he's going to throw a word back at me, and we're going to just sort of talk a little bit through that, and hopefully you find them interesting words to consider. So, Mr. Thorpe, nice to have you here again. And as we
Pleasure
said,
again.
We're going to do this over the next few weeks and see if we can support some conversations around things at school that I think are important, and trust the parents will find them important too. And I was even thinking maybe for the last one, we'll ask parents for a couple of thoughts on questions they'd like to throw at us.
Real hot seat.
So let's fire away. And it's that season at school. We've got IB examinations that have been on the go. GCSEs have just started. So my word to you is examinations.
Oh, there's a big word for this term. I mean, we're right in the middle of exam season at the moment. Our main focus is external exams. We've got our IB exams that started 10 days ago. We've got our GCSE exams that started this week. That whole examination process is it's quite an undertaking. There's a huge amount of hours that goes into planning it and making sure they move smoothly. So we've basically got 3 organisations that we're trying to cater for. We've got the IB ones, we've got the 2 IGCSE ones, we've got Cambridge and we've got Pearson. And each exam board has got their own quirks and rules around, how they need to run and what we need to do. And, one of them, Cambridge, has got an 180-page booklet on everything you need to do about exams. So it's quite an undertaking to make sure that we follow all those rules and regulations really quite tightly. They've got their own quirks. For example, IB says no food and drink at all, water at discretion. IGCSE one saying water is fine. One of the exam boards says no watches. One says they can wear analog watches. So trying to navigate and trying to get some kind of consistency is quite difficult.
It's tricky.
So we do take that approach of, look, let's just go with with the rules which are going to satisfy all 3. But we have no choice to follow those, and we are fully expecting to be inspected at some point. I think for the last 3 or 4 years, we've always had somebody from one of the exam boards come out and have a look at what we do, and they look at, for example, how do we store the exam papers securely? How do we run our exams? How do we deal with the dispatching and kind of sending them away? And we don't follow those rules and regulations quite tightly, then there's quite severe consequences for us. And
No, it's a huge undertaking, and I know there's a significant number of people involved in getting it right. And if you drifted into kind of examination philosophy,
yeah, I mean, it's we from a philosophy kind of point of view, we're going to have our internal exams, which are going to be starting very soon, and our philosophy for them is to make sure that they mirror the external ones as closely as possible. It's about developing that exam experience, that exam resilience, so that when students have sat in exam hall for 2 or 3 mock exams, by the time they come to the real one, they're not intimidated. They know what they're going to expect. The rules are not going to be different. So we're trying to just prepare them for that external one, so they feel comfortable. But then there's the whole point of the internal exams, which is to work out where are the gaps in their learning and their knowledge. What do teachers need to do to fill in those gaps? What do students need to do to to make sure those things they didn't quite get right in the internal exams, how are you going to get them right in the external exams? So that's part of why we run those internal exams in pretty much the same way as well. And then we Sarah and I were talking this morning about just what these exams are going to look like in 4 or 5 years' times, and
with all the changes,
and the exam boards are looking at going digital for exams, and we're looking at some point in the future of getting rid of paper and pen, replacing it with laptops, and we've got a bit of work to do on trying to work out how we're going to navigate all of that, but that'll be a watch this space on that one.
And equally getting the students prepared over the years so they're ready for that. It starts a change like that, which is down the line, happens. The back work is 5 to 7 years worth of preparation.
Yeah, so it's quite likely that our year 7s, year 8s will have a completely different exam experience to the ones we've got now, but we're already beginning to think about that because that time's going to come around pretty quickly.
All right, Mr. Thorpe. So now your opportunity to throw it at me.
Okay, so give me your thoughts on universities.
Yeah, so I think, from a philosophical perspective, we know that exam results are important, but we've definitely in a position where we don't believe it's the be-all and end-all. The idea being that what we would like to achieve is a pathway, as unique as possible for a student through the school, and then they get to the point where we can support them with their application to the most appropriate university or college. So, whilst exams, as we said, are key and important, you've spoken to sort of the processes and various things, that isn't our most important measurable. I'd like to think our key measurables, and one of those key measurables would be the university, college, or even career destinations that we're able to support our students getting into. So kind of shifting the dial slightly, and not just about exam results. What does that mean in terms of university admissions and what we can do? It means we need to make sure we have a longer run-in to get the choices, understandings of courses and opportunities in different countries right. We need to make sure we have a team, which we do have in place now, that can really help and support students going off to really whichever destination they'd like to. In particular, we've got a large cohort that heads off to the UK. We've got a reasonably healthy size cohort that goes off to Canada and the US, and then we have a smattering of all sorts of countries, as you know. We've Sweden and Norway and down in Australia and South Africa and elsewhere. So how are we able to best put a team in place, not just have a person? So, having a couple of staff in our sixth form that focus more on the UCAS and university process, some that are more suited to Canada and understand those universities, and then the US. And, that I do NCAA applications. I support the Common App process with Miss Sinclair, but making sure that team is robust enough and nimble enough to deal with changes that continue to come out. We all know that post-COVID, there was lots of sort of change in the university admissions environment. New people came in that didn't understand some programs. So also the idea of, we have a multiple pathway approach. You're making sure universities understand what a Warwick Academy student comes with when they apply. And also sometimes it's having to deal with translation issues where university doesn't quite understand exactly what we offer and how we are going to articulate that carefully so that student gets into that program of study. So again, it's a bit like examinations, isn't it? There's lots of really careful detail that needs to be dealt with. We definitely need a team to address it, but I believe it's a hugely important part of one of our key deliverables is, not just about the exam results at the end, but it's about making sure that we can best advise, best support, and get those students to the most appropriate university and college. So, it's a huge part of us.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit like the examination. We're looking at what's potentially coming down the road in the future. And if we look at for example, what's happening in the UK. It's definitely offers are softening up because they're trying to encourage as many students to go there as possible.
It's a definite buyer's market out there.
Canada's tightening up because they're trying to reduce the amount of immigration that they've got coming into Canada. So definitely some trends which we're seeing evolving.
And I think I'd like to think as part of our job is that we're right on the cusp and ahead of those trends and make the changes and do the adjustments and obviously share the information with parents and students. But hugely important part of what we do. And really it's a build up, and it's a run in, right? It doesn't just happen in the last 2 years of school, and even from a careers perspective and subject choice, but back in year 9, and even exposing students to a range of subjects in year 7 to give them opportunities to think about what comes next. And even some of the specialisms and some of the approaches we have in the upper primary, all leads to that ability to then navigate what might be best. And also the changes we got down the line, whether it's AI or technology, it's going to be interesting to see what universities do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of our key metrics. Are our students getting to the most appropriate universities for them? And some of our stats along the lines of close to 100% of our students are getting into their first choice university, which I think says says a lot to what our sixth form team does up there.
Yeah, you and I both know because we deal with it every summer. That sort of excitement at the results, but also then them getting into that university and 100% getting their first choice is something we're very proud of, and long may that continue.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Mark.